Okay, this is in your revision book, and it is a word problem that has to be solved with algebra. So I'm going to use my highlighter, and I'm going to highlight some things to start with. A taxi company charges different amounts of money. Okay, so based on the distance, which is d, we'll highlight that. We'll also highlight kilometers, because that's what the distance is going to be measured in. The taxi travels, and then let's use a different color for the time, and that's going to be measured in minutes. Okay, and the only other thing we've got to figure out is, can we have a different color? Oh, I love this color. The cost in dólares. So these are the three things that we're going to get. So that was that pretty purple. So we've given, this taxi fare can be figured out with this formula that looks really complicated, but it's not. Whenever we want cost in dollars, that's going to be represented by a C. When we want the distance, that's going to take D. And if we want to find out the time, that's going to be this T. So these pronumerals that used to be X's and Y's and we don't know what, we're now actually naming them for what they're going to do. So in each of the examples below, we're going to find out one because we're given two of the others. So in the first one, we're going to look at finding the cost, so we're solving for C. For the second one, we're looking for how far the taxi went, so we're solving for D, because we're given the time and the cost. And for the third one, we're asked how long the journey took. So we are then looking for time, and we're given the distance and the cost. So all these things stand for C is for cost, D is for distance, and T is for time. And finally, just to highlight these, this one I'm looking for the cost, so I'm not given the cost. This one I'm given the cost, and this one I'm given the cost. Now what color did I make my pretty time? If I'm looking for time, this one, it gives me time, 20 minutes. That one tells me a 10-minute journey. And this one asks how long, so that's actually looking for time. And finally, we go back to distance. The distance is given to us in the first one. It's asked of us, so we're solving for distance, and here's the distance of the final one. Okay, so let's do A. So we always start by rewriting our formula. Cost equals 4 times the distance. That's what those stuck next to each other mean. Taking away the time over 2, or we could say half the time. So for A, we want to know the cost, so I'm going to leave C as C, but I'm going to replace D with the distance of 10 kilometers. And I do that by algebraically 4 times that number in brackets. Minus, that's a T, does that look like a T? Minus the time, we have 20 minutes divided by 2. So let's work those out. 4 times 10 is 40, and cancel those, that makes 10. So 40 minus 10 is 30. So we have to make sure that we clarify, because we said the cost was going to be in dollars. Therefore, the cost is $30. That's where the dollar sign comes back in, and that's what we indicated up here. So for A, the cost of a 10-kilometer journey that takes 20 minutes is $30. For B, how far will we go? So it's the D that's going to remain as our variable. So we have a cost. I'm still going to write out the formula. Equals 4 times D, take away half the time, or T over 2. Now I'm going to replace what I know. How far I go is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to keep 4D. I've got a 10-minute journey, so I replace T with 10 and put it over 2, and I've got a cost of $27. So I haven't put any units in here, kilometers, minutes, or dollars. They all get put in at the end, but it's going to work. So for this one, let's write it out again and solve, or simplify, I should say. The 10 over 2 is 5. And then algebraically, we're going to do an operation of adding 5. So I can get 4D by itself. Adding 5 gives me, what is 32? And then I've got 4 D's, and I just want one of those D's. So I divide by 4, which gives me 8. And then I'm going to say, therefore, the distance, which is what we were asked for, how far, is 8. And what is the distance in kilometers? 8 kilometers. Okay, and now see, I'm going to do 2 different ways. And I'm going to show you that both work. I'm going to always start by writing out the rule or the formula again. I start with that. Okay, here's the first way. This is the way I did it in class, and I made a mistake, and I now know what my mistake was. So how long, so we're looking for time. Our journey is 6 kilometers long, so I replace the distance with 6. I don't know what the time is, but I know the cost is $18. Okay, here is the way that I did it in class and the mistake I made. What I actually did in class is, here we go, 6 times 4 is 24 minus t over 2. So we don't know what t is, t for 2. So what I did in class was, so I've got a kind of, I want to get t by itself. So I took off 24 to remove that 24 from both sides. Now it got a bit scary because it put us into negative territory. But I also have, I carried this with it. That minus t means that I am pretty much negative t over 2. And here's where I went awry. I want to get to t, so I can multiply by 2, because t over 2 means divide. And that will give me a negative number and a negative t. So I will multiply by negative 2. As long as I do it on both sides, it doesn't matter what I do. I can multiply it by orangutan on both sides. I don't know what that would give me. So now I've got a negative times a negative, which gives me a positive. I've got a negative times a negative, which gets me a positive. What I did wrong in class is I divided instead of multiplied. Happens to the best of us. So therefore, the how long did it take? The time was 12 minutes. Now there's another way that you can do this, and this might make more sense to you or not. So we still have 18 equals 4 times 6. Let's save our time and go to 24. Minus t over 2. The other thing you could do is you can actually, if I'm taking away t over 2, I can add t over 2 to the other side. So now it's 18 plus t over 2. Or t over 2 plus 18, doesn't matter. So and then how do I get rid of my 18? I will subtract it, because that's the opposite of adding. And that will give me t over 2 equals 24 minus 18 is 6. This is looking familiar. And now I just don't have to deal with negativity. I have enough negativity in the world. And so I multiply by 2 to get rid of that bottom 2, and t again equals 12. So it's the same answer. You just have to remember, if you're going to go into negatives, you've got to carry that negative symbol with it, and then you multiply by negative whatever you're going to multiply by to get it back into the positive. Whichever way works, you do your thing.